Hey everyone! On April Fool's Day in 2020, the devs released a Shrine of Secrets for the day, featuring only the perk Calm Spirit, a perk that at the time was considered one of, if not the worst perk in the game. Unlike a usual shrine where you'd get 4 different perks, there were no other perks aside Calm Spirit. That's all that was available. What makes this even funnier though is this. Can you guess which perk had appeared the most in the shrine up to this point? That's right, Calm Spirit. Here's all the times I could think of when the devs trolled us, both directly and indirectly. In 2017 there was an event ran for the full Masquerade. This was an event which lasted 4 days in August, which challenged the community to hook survivors as killer, or to wiggle free of the killer's grasp as survivor, a total of 12 million times in order to unlock a special reward. In addition, the community also got a 2 times BP multiplier as well. The community tried very hard, with their progress being tracked via a website, which is quite cool by the way. I kinda wish they'd do stuff like that now too. However, the community only managed to get 6 million out of the required 12, ultimately failing. So the devs lived up to their word, which was to only reward the community with whatever the reward was if the goal was reached, and so the community never got to see what we would have gotten had we reached the 12 million. A goal which in retrospect seems almost impossible, especially with the game's much smaller player base at the time. The devs did provide some form of compensation however, giving out the darker version of Huntress's base mask, a small gift, but seemingly not what the intended reward was, if there really ever was one. Maybe it was just to prove a point that if you failed the community challenge, you get nothing. I think that was quite funny. And it does make me genuinely curious whether this was a bit of a troll and to prove a point, or there really was a reward, and something we truly have never actually received. The best perk build. This is one that likely wasn't an intentional troll, but just a mistake I think. But it's still pretty funny how it ended up happening. Back in April of 2021, the DBD mobile Twitter account posted a build for players to use to help them escape chases. Let's see if you can spot the issue with it. Perk 1, Iron Will. Perk 2, Lithe. Perk 3, Sprint Burst. Perk 4, Urban Evasion. Right, there's 2 exhaustion perks, so that's pretty bad. But the worst part is that Lithe is never going to be activatable due to Sprint Burst's presence, making it quite simply a terrible suggestion for a build. This got quite heavily memed on at the time, but many equally believing it was probably just a joke too, or a late April Fool's joke, as it was in April. It's quite a big oversight after all, with anyone who has played the game even a bit realizing this quite quickly. Regardless, I think it was quite funny, troll or not. Another actual April Fool's joke came in April of 2023, with the release of the pixelated glasses for Adam, which only cost a measly 1 iridescent shard. Wow, what a deal. A great deal for any cosmetic. I'll snag that right up. It was a nice reward at the time with a cool and funny look for Adam, the pixelated meme glasses. But wait, now you're forever stuck at 99 iridescent shards and will always be 1 away from being able to buy something. You'll never escape and oh no, oh fuck. The following year in 2024 we received a strange leak about a game mode allowing you to step on survivors in some form. It was odd to say the least. However, not too long after we got an announcement from the devs themselves that there was a new limited time event releasing where you could get stepped on by the Oni. The trailer launched and the name was My Little Oni. The initial reaction to this was actually to assume it was a joke, with many just assuming something so silly wouldn't really come to the game, and with it also being April Fool's Day, it seemed quite clearly to be a joke. However, upon launching up the game, it was in fact there and very real. The event lasted 3 days I think, allowing you to play as a bigger than usual Oni or tiny survivors with adjusted game rules, noises and more. It was one of the best trolls they've ever done and pulled off flawlessly in my opinion. Another strange leak that occurred also happened around April Fools and was assumed to once again be a joke. This was when Behavior registered a trademark for their upcoming game, Hooked on You, a Dead by Daylight dating sim. When this was first leaked, it was assumed to surely be a joke and not something to actually come to fruition, a teaser released in May of 2022, and then it was further mentioned in the 6th year anniversary stream, with Matthew Cote speaking about it whilst having his feet in the sand. Yup. The game then launched in August just a few months later. It was in fact a fully fledged dating simulator for Dead by Daylight, and at the time DBD's first exploration into other games connected to its universe. To the best of my understanding, the game is also canon, which is quite funny. Some of the skins featured in the game eventually even appeared in the main game too. Needless to say, the devs one-upped all expectations on this one. The third way to escape the trials is something the devs said there was years ago. It's somewhat of a conspiracy at this point, with there not actually being any known recorded evidence of it, but there being a number of people, including myself, who remember it being said by a developer. It was said that somewhere in the game it's possible to escape a third way, the first two being the exit gates and the hatch. It's been attempted over the years to find out what the third way to escape is, with it constantly being put into question of whether this has any legitimacy, or whether the devs simply trolled us originally with this statement, and it becoming sort of a legend or conspiracy at this point, with us not even having the original dev clip or statement of it being said. It's one of those bizarre instances where many people remember but no one can actually prove it definitively, nor is there really a third way to escape the trials that has been found, both in the game itself as well as in the files. It would of course have to be in the files somewhere too, otherwise it simply wouldn't be real. You can't just not have something like that appearing in the files, with it being quite a substantial mechanic, even if it were hidden. Therefore, it seems to just be a case of the devs trolling us, leading us on for a bit, or potentially it could have been planned at some point but the devs decided against it, an idea mentioned in passing which was taken too seriously by the community. This is the most popular community opinion. On the other hand, the potential solves for the third way to escape are the use of the hag cannon, various glitches allowing you to exit the trial's walls, or to simply DC from the match, all of which I don't find very compelling really. The teacher is maybe the best example of the devs trolling us though, a character that was referenced in the game files in the very early days of the game, before the release of the very first chapter, The Last Breath, in July of 2016. 3 items indicated it to seemingly be a teacher killer upcoming as the game's first chapter. This was the power icon that was a picture of a ruler, and with the name Detention. There was also a perk called Underperform, with what we can assume is a pupil pictured wearing a dunce hat, a pointed hat placed onto naughty or slow-learning pupils from as far back as the 1700s all the way up to the 20th century. Therefore, the teacher likely would have been from either the 1800s or the early 1900s, with this being a similar placement to where the nurse eventually came from too. There was also a survivor item named Trapple. It was an apple with a number of spikes coming out of it. It would have presumably been a droppable item, not too dissimilar from a firecracker or a flashbang, with these not being in the game at the time. Potentially it could have stunned the killer instead of blinding them, acting as a droppable pallet of sorts. The assumption was therefore that this was a completely new killer dubbed the Teacher, based on these elements. Come over 8 years on though, and there's still no sign at all of the Teacher, yet the files are still present in the game. It's therefore widely considered as a troll on the part of the devs, an intentional misleading thread to put people off of the scent of the real upcoming chapter of the time, The Last Breath and the Nurse. It did seem quite successful too, with now even today the Teacher being queried for what was all likely just a big joke, a sneaky plant in the files to mislead any leakers or data miners. Assgate. This happened back upon the release of Pyramid Head and the Silent Hill chapter. One thing people noticed when this came out is that Pyramid Head had a particularly pronounced rear, so much so that it was noticed by many players and praised quite highly. However, just 2 weeks after the chapter's release, something happened to it. It shrunk. No longer was it as pronounced, and it appeared to have been flattened completely. Despite this, the devs said they didn't do anything to it, and all they had done was adjust how the apron looked over his body. However, comparing the two, and there does seem to be a clear difference that surely cannot just be because of an adjustment to the apron. Players begun to dig deeper, and user Angelicus23 on Reddit uncovered that it hadn't just been nerfed, but it was completely flat. A stunning revelation. Had the devs been trolling us this entire time? Well, actually no. Pyramid Head had remained untouched, but a specific outfit of his, this one did have a strange bug causing him to become flatter than usual. The patch notes of 5.1.1 in August of 2021 read, "Fixed an issue that caused the executioner's rear to be too flat." So players weren't completely crazy, but equally the devs hadn't been lying either. So what really happened? This is debatable of course, and just speculation really, but I think it's a combination of players remembering differently, the devs unintentionally trolling us with them being unaware of the bug causing this, and finally the general event of it all just being quite funny, and everyone wanting it to be real to some extent because of that. Can you think of any other times the devs trolled us, either intentionally or not? Let me know down below. Thanks, and goodbye.